The 15th BRICS Summit, hosted by South Africa in Sandton, begins on Tuesday. In the lead-up to the summit, the host country faced a number of hurdles, particularly in relation to the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who, as a result, will not attend the summit. Some of the key points on the agenda include the increase in the number of countries seeking to join the BRICS bloc of growing economies in the global south, as well as the establishment of a common currency. Let's take a look at why these two key agenda items are important and which others to look out for with the international relations analyst, Dr Kingsley Makhubela. Very good morning to you, Dr Makhubela. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. The build-up to the BRICS Summit has largely focused on whether or not Russian President Vladimir Putin will be attending. Now that we've passed that stage, we know that over 40 countries have raised their hand up, showing an interest in joining the BRICS. Talk to us about what sort of discussions will be amongst the leaders, because I understand there are some sort of divisions on the expansion of the bloc. Some are for it, some not so much.
Good morning. I think the challenge that is facing the current 5 members of the BRICS is working out the criterion for new membership, which I think is very fundamental. But before you bring in new membership, have a criterion as to what kind of purpose will these new members subscribe to. But BRICS remain a very attractive informal organization, because it's not a formal international organization. That's why you are seeing a lot of people wanting to join. It's because the 5 countries together, they have the global GDP of about $28.6 trillion, which is equivalent to 26% of global GDP. And if you look at the GDP per capita, the purchasing power parity, it's huge. It's about 56 trillion US dollars. Now, because of these dynamics and also the population of the BRICS countries, it provides economies of scale. They have huge reserves of about $4.4 trillion. And with 41% of the global population, they remain a very attractive entity to join and to become part of. Because once you're part of that, the perception is that they will have free access to the population or the demographics that are contained within the BRICS. That's where the big attraction is.
Yeah. I mean, the leaders, I know, I mean, you speak about the economy. We know that economic cooperation is also likely to topple the agenda, as the leaders will also discuss how they can improve economic ties between their very diverse economies, because we know South Africa, especially considering that it's the smallest of the economies within the group. Which sectors will be important now as these economic discussions take place for South Africa, and also considering what South Africa is facing at the moment? I mean, the energy crisis, so far as load shedding is concerned, and the unemployment rate.
You know, there's been a lot of talks about whether the BRICS would adopt a common monetary system. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they will discuss a basket of currencies to use outside the US dollar and the euro, which have been really weaponized to deal with some countries. So that would be one thing that they would have to have a discussion about. But there are the big appetite for consumption in China and in India, around the host of mineral resources that we have here in South Africa. We know China has been buying a lot of steel around because of their developmental needs and so on, and they are growing at a very rapid pace. So those kind of resources will be very useful in terms of unlocking whatever trade and artificial barriers that may be there. But I think South Africa has lost a great opportunity to start instigating a discussion around the maritime transportation, which is going to be fundamental for the future. Given
Okay, Dr. Kingsley, are you still there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you. We lost you a bit. You were talking about the significance, given what you were trying to just iron that part out.
I'm saying the maritime transportation is going to be key, which South Africa really should have instigated a discussion around the maritime transportation, which really would unlock the movements of goods and services from South Africa to Latin America, from South Africa to Asia and to Europe. So this discussion around people talking about the trade deficits and so on, it's minute. The bigger thing is to look into the trade barriers and unlock them at the political level. And of course, because you are having a meeting of a summit of heads of state, they will take position on this matter. It would have facilitated key decision in terms of unlocking the transportation.
What about the BRICS Bank? I mean, we're hearing that is also another crucial discussion point that will be forming part of the agenda, discussions on how to boost local currency fundraising and lending within the bank.
You know, the people have been talking about some form of a common monetary system. That's not going to happen. I think what's going to happen now is to capacitate the bank. You would have seen during the Africa-Russia summit that the head of the BRICS Bank, Dilma Rousseff, was invited to attend the meeting. It's around how do we capacitate this bank to have enough liquidity. And I think new members coming in, they'll look into their contribution into the bank. And, of course, how to unlock those contributions within the bank to facilitate development. Because the bank is premised on development within the BRICS area. But, of course, it poses a big threat to the traditional dollar market that has been lending money to a number of countries. That's where you find this uncertainty and the perception that the BRICS is the rivalry of the world. The BRICS is not a rival. It's an alternative that is emerging. And I think that's why it's becoming so attractive, because even the question of the currencies that they're going to use, countries feel very comfortable to relate to the currencies outside the dollar, because the dollar has been largely weaponized.
Yeah. We also know that the last day talks around the friends of BRICS are likely to come to the forefront as about 67 leaders. Invitations extended to those 67 leaders across the world. And one of those leaders is actually France, with President Emmanuel Macron also expressing an interest in being a part of this. But then we understand that on the other end, Russian President Vladimir Putin not so impressed with wanting France to be part of these discussions. Of course, in links to Ukraine and discouraging France from being part of that, and therefore that invitation was not given. What do you think will form some of the important discussions here around a friendship, especially looking at ties with BRICS and the African countries?
You know, the French involvement in the BRICS would have been antithesis of what the BRICS stands for. Because the BRICS stands for, they want to create an alternative financial model system around the world. And if you look at France, the arrangement between Europe and the United States with respect to the monetary fund is that they would keep the position of the managing director of the Global Monetary Fund, and the World Bank will go to the American. So they have already decided in terms of how they slice the global financial pie amongst themselves. And now the BRICS provides an alternative, particularly the BRICS Bank. Now, to have the French participate in that would have been antithesis. The French are currently facing challenges in West Africa from their former colonies. That they have been really indebted to France. I mean, if you look at the agreement that France has with those countries, it's created a serious problem, and that's why you've seen the upheaval in West Africa from the former French colony. The discussion, and I think some of these issues needs to be clearly clarified. The perception that a lot of countries are coming to join, some of them are attracted by the fact that there's a bank, and they think they would walk in today and tomorrow they will get a loan. So we have to adhere to particular protocols. That's why the idea of setting up the criterion for joining, and of course the bank will work out a feasible and a very strategic monetary disbursement about who is entitled and how do they pay and what is the interest. So those kind of arrangements will come into play. So people, they don't know as yet. They think they're working today, and tomorrow they'll get the loan. It's not going to be like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Kingsley Makhubela.